next week's Parsha Sema, we get the mitzvahs of Kahanim and Kohen Gadol. But Kohen Gadol meyachav sheyitzak al rosh Hashem mishcha. So we know this the din of aninus by him. He's not able to. He still has to. For who isha bibsula yikach, unique to the Kohen Gadol, he has to marry a girl bibsula. She has to marry when she's a besula, and focus on the word bibsulaha. Almano gerusha v'chalola zoyna es edel yikach. You can marry almano gerusha chalola zoyna. We're familiar with these things. Kim and repeated kim besulas meyam of yikach isha. So we begin the Gemara on the bottom of Nun Ches Amid Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Just to set the tone, we had a machlokus in the Mishnah between Reb Meir. We had a machlokus in the Mishnah between Reb Meir and Rebbe Elazar and Reb Shimon regarding if a Kohen Gadol was Mekadesh and Almano or a Kohen Gadol had yet a Gerusha, whether she could eat Truma or not. Light Rebbe Meir, she couldn't because it's a Mishtameres to be a Psula. She's awaiting a beer, that's Asa. Light Shimon and Rebbe Elazar, you could go ahead and eat because Mishtameres to be a Psula was not. The Mishnah concluded, and if she is Nis'amla or Nisgarshu, if she became an Almana or divorced, depending if she was an Almana or Gerusha from Nisuin, right? From Nisuin, then she'd be a Chalala and she won't be able to eat Truma because she was boiled to either the Kohen Hedjid when she's a Gerusha or the Kohen Gadol when she's an Almana. But if it's from Erisin, even Reb Meir would be Maida, could go ahead and eat Truma. Why? Because she no longer is Mishtameres Labia Psula. Right? So even Reb Meir would be Maida, you would be able to eat because once there's no Mishtameres Labia Psula, because she's an Almana or Gerusha, you'll be able to eat. Now the Gemara is going to ask a tangential question, and Kedarko, guys, when the Gemara asks the tangential question, generally it's going to bring in the Mishnah to be posted. So, in other words, all the question that pops out a question, you could be assured that some way we're going to segue into the Mishnah or to answer the question. What is the question at hand? Boy minei Reb Chia bar Yosef. 2 lines from the bottom on Nun Ches Amid Beis. Boy minei Reb Chia bar Yosef me Shmuel. Reb Chia bar Yosef asked the following question from Shmuel: Kohen Gadol shekiddush es hakatana ubagra tachtav. Now, a Kohen Gadol has to marry a Basula. Now, your assumption, guys, until you got to this daf, is that a Basula is any woman who never lived with a man. That's maybe the term in English. In halachic terms, it's a girl who is 12 years less than 6 months. And once she hits 12 years and 6 months, no longer is she considered a Basula, she is a Boigeres. And we'll see a reason why. But it seems to be that physically, Basulim begin to go ahead and wither a little bit, and she's not a full-fledged Basula. And we'll see a limit in the next Gemara. The Kohen has to go ahead. He has to take a girl who is an Apmin Basula. So you have a window. Katana Naira, no, it's 12 and up to 12 and 6 months. Anything after that, he can't marry her. Anything after that, he can't marry her. So now, he was Mekadesh her when she was a Katana, which is great. That's no problem. She's a Basula. However, the Nisuin, the consummation of the marriage, did not take place until she was by Geras. So she's no longer a Basula. Do we go after the Arusa and he could stay married to her? Or do we go after the Nisuin one and it's not considered a Basula? That's the question at hand. Pretty interesting question. Amid Aleph. So Mahu. Basa Nisud Azlinon, and you cannot stay married to her because she is a Boigeres, she's no longer a Basula. A Basa Erisin Azlinon, or do we go after Erisin? And since she was a Katana by Erisin, she was a Basula, he could stay married to her. So Amalei, so Shmuel responded to Reb Chia bar Yosef, Tinisua, you learned the answer. And now we have the connection to our Mishnah. This Almanai and this Garshu, from a Bia Basula, she divorced. From a Bia Basula, she either became divorced or an almana, mina nisuit, she's puzzled. Why? She's a chalala, guys. Correct? Mina nisua means the marriage was consummated, so she's a chalala. Mina erisin, kashrus. But from erisin, what? She's kosher. Good. From erisin, she's kosher. So what do you see? That you go after what? Min erisin kashrus. You see that what? That you go after Nisuin. Almost says Rashi, B'psul kahuna basa Nisuin aslinon. Midlei pasal almana shenis ars l'kohen gadol u'meis. When you didn't go ahead and pasala, you didn't. You should go after what? You go after. This is a right. You go after what? I learned that you have to go after Erison. Min anasu in places. Min Erison kashvus. So now, what are we going to say? That you go after. Rashi says, "Mina erisin kashrus alma b'psul kahuna basin esun aslinan midaloi pasul almana shenis arsel l'koyin gadol u'meis." When we didn't up, so that's guys. If you go after erisin, the almana that got engaged to the koyin gadol should be asa. If you go after erisin, well, I don't care if what happened afterwards. In other words, I don't care what happened afterwards. Almana gets married to a koyin gadol, right? Right now. And then he dies. If she can go back and eat truma, it must be we don't look at the shas erisin, because if you did, she'd be puzzle. It must be we look at the shas nesuin. One more time. Again, if the husband dies, she's going to eat. That means she's not a halala. Why not? Because we're going after shas nesuin, and since there was never nesuin, so she's okay. Because if you go after Erison, she's married to a kohen gadol, so therefore it would not be good. So l'chayra being a raya, the sum is kashim and in the sum psuls min Erison krashes. So Amalei, so said Rav Chia bar Abba to Shmuel, said Rav Chia bar Yosef to Shmuel, l'shavi chalala like boile, to make her into chalala is not a shaila. The biyahi demashvi chalala. In other words, there's no shaila over here that if the husband dies and she never lived with the husband, that she is permitted to eat truma. After all, she's not a chalala, right? In other words, it's not a shaila of erisin or nesuin. It's a shaila, did she or didn't she, right? The whole shaila we had, guys, in the Mishnah was chuppah, right? We had actually it was kedushin. Was kedushin? I'm sorry. Ki kami boili. What's my shaila? Says Rav Chia bar Yosef. For who isha b'bsula yikach. It says that a woman kicha b'bsula. Now kicha can be used in nesuin. Kicha can be used by Erison. So which one is it? We find the lashon by both guys. My kicha the kedushin beinin, like kicha the nesuim beinin. Which one is it? Again, because kicha can mean Erison, can mean kedushin. So that's what I want to know. So Amalei, so Shmuel said, Hanami tenisua. You also learned that. Not here, but a little later on. Iris es almana. Now we know a kohen can marry an almana. A kohen gadol can't. So iris es almana. If the kohen, a regular kohen, gives kedushin to an almana, finisman aliyah kohen gadol, and then he's appointed right as the kohen gadol. Can he marry her? Can he stay? Can he be do nesuin? So if you go after nesuin, you can't, because b'shas nesuin he's right a kohen gadol. If you go after Erison, then he would be able to fulfill the marriage. Why? Because b'shas Erison he was he was a kohen hedyot.
Kohen gadol has to be married only when the shas becomes kohen gadol, not when he's appointed.
Right.
Kohen gadol is halacha, and kohen gadol has to be married, right?
He has to be married. I would say b'shas the avoda. B'shas the avoda. B'shas the avoda. So now, Iris is almana, and the smali is kohen gadol, yichnos. So you see what you go after Erison. We don't consider what a kohen gadol. We consider him a kohen hedyot. It says Shani Hasan the chsiv yikach ish. It says yikach isha, so it's mashma. The word isha is extra, and we're learning out over here that any isha, even almana, says the if that's your raya. In other words, you tell me it's not a raya. You tell me the pasuk says yikach isha. So hachanami it says he for who isha b'bsula yikach. It says isha over here for who isha b'bsula yikach. So if you're going to darshan isha over there, that you go after Erison, also over here you should go after Erison. We give Baishar Ashayla that the kohen gadol can marry her. Says the Gemara, achas v'shtayim. No, just one and not two. No, it's we're darshaning one ribuy, not two ribuyim. So we have a choice, guys. We can darshan either a kohen hedyot who's appointed to a kohen gadol, or we can darshan a kohen gadol who marries a katana and then she becomes a bogeres. And we're opting for the former. We're opting the kohen gadol that is the kohen hedyot that was elevated to a kohen gadol. He can marry. That's when we're married. But what we married, what? In fact, if she's a kohen, she's a katana, and he married her when she was a katana, and therefore she's a besula. And now he's nichnas when she's a Vaygeres, so she's no longer a Basula. We spoke that out. That Basula in the Torah is different than our concept of Basula. That once she reaches 12 and 6 months, it's out. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you the difference. Umari, so why did you see? Why did you see to go ahead and apply it to a Kohen Gadol, a Kohen Hedger becomes a Kohen Gadol versus what? A girl going from a Katana to a Bageres? Ha ishtani gufa, v'hoy ishtani gufa. By the Katana, there's a physical change. By the Katana, there's a physical change. She's going right from being a Katana to being a Bageres. So the hormonal change, there's a difference there. Therefore, I'm going to say that woman is not the same woman. Therefore, he can't marry to her. Mashenke, when the changes in him, sort of say, he goes from Kohen Hedger to Kohen Gadol, but the girl is an almana. Obviously, she's an almana. She was a married woman, a full-fledged woman. We'll say they could stay together. Okay, so I thought it'd be appropriate. There's some really, really interesting stuff on this thing. If you have your phones, I sent it out to your phones. What's the reason she has to marry a Basula? The next Mishnah, what's the reason she has to marry a Basula? What's the reason over there? So that's my question. She has to marry a Basula. What's the reason? So this, I spoken this out before, and I found it in the Sefer Peleus, the Pella Plain. There's a Sefer that says Oitza Peleus HaTorah. So he says, Hagoyin at Sadik, Rav Mordechai Aaron, the one that says Tam Pella Shah Kohen Gadol Asa Lisa Almana. It's a Pella Why the Kohen Gadol is Asa to marry an Almana. What's the reason? And why you can't marry an Almana? The second one. I'm doing the second one first. Why you can't marry an Almana? I'm going to do the next one after the shit. I'll do this way. Why can't a Kohen Gadol marry an Almana? So I'm going at Tzaddik of Mordechai Aaron, Scheinberg, Shlita, Menaki Adas Yerushalayim, Yara Kodesh, Tibana B'Heir Amen, Heruli Estivre HaMoshev Zekanim Labali Taisvis. Showed me the Sefer Moshev Zekanim Labali Taisvis, Shemevar Tam Nifl, for this reason, Shenitztava Kohen Gadol Lisa Basula Dafka. Why is the Kohen Dafka marry a Basula? Because of Shemefnesha Kohen Hagadol B'Yosei B'Kodesh HaKadoshim. The Kohen Gadol, when he's in the Kodesh Kedoshim, Hayamaskir Hashem HaMeforish B'Yom Kippur. He would say the Shem HaMeforish B'Yom Kippur. V'Yidei Hashem HaMeforish Hayab'Koichel Lahemis L'Hachyos. That Hashem HaMeforish had the ability to give life or death. Cheshasha HaTorah Shem Anasan HaKohen Gadol Einav Beishasish. Maybe the Kohen Gadol went ahead and he desired a Neshasish. U'B'Shas Haskaras Hashem HaMeforish. Yechavin sheyamis bailav v'yisena. He'd have a kavanah to die and he could marry her. L'chein amar Torah sheyisa basula le'almana. You marry dafka a basula, not almana, and therefore that would guarantee that what his mind would not be. Now you think this is pretty bizarre, right? Here he is. But if you think about it, I was thinking about it. We did a Gemara in Yuma. The Kahanim Gedolim, the Bayesheni, they weren't tzaddikim. They were dying like flies, right? We went through hundreds and hundreds. Yeah, they would die because they bought it. They were such amaratzim. They had a mamish be taught. They avoided nothing. So it's not so far. As bizarre as this sounds, two things. One, ain't apotropos l'arayos. When it comes to arayos, there's no apotropos l'arayos. There's no beginning, end. Who knows? Moshe Rabbeinu said was chayish that what they would say he went to the tent to count the Levium, the little babies, that he had to stay outside, and Hashem would tell him why, because people would go ahead and be chayish Moshe Rabbeinu for going into a tent. On Yom Kippur, we read the Pasha. Yes, it's a Taisus that we learn together. Yes. So I'm saying, so this is a fabulous svara of why Dafki can't marry an almana. Now that reason, so this is you marry Basula versus an almana, but why not a bula that's not married? Why not a punny? Okay, so we're going to see that. I'm going to first do the Gemara, and then at the end of Shia, we'll go through a Sefer Chinuch that is it's even more wondrous than this. It's even more wondrous than this. We'll see Bez Hashem. It's very. That's why I brought it in. I try to bring in interesting things, so I don't want to bore you. When I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint on the walls. What are you going to do? Can you do me a favor? Benji's out. Can you take care of it?
Set yourself up for that one. Rabbi. My guard over here.
Again, he's got a guard. He's got my right side. Okay, great. Okay, guys. It says the Mishnah. Kohen Gadol la yisa almana. Now you know why. Kohen Gadol should not marry an almana. Peladik. Kohen Gadol la yisa. It's a taisus. La yisa almana. Bein almana mina erisin Bein almanim and nesuin, whether regardless if she's an almana from erisin or nesuin. In other words, she had gave kedushin and her husband died, or the marriage was consummated and died. She's an almana. She cannot, a kohen gadol cannot marry her. And he can't marry a girl as a baigeres. This is because it's a chasarn. She's not a basula anymore. She never lived with a man. She's only 12. Guys, she's 12 years and 6 months. That's what she is. He can't marry her. She is no longer a basula. And we'll see. Rabbi Elazar of Shimon machshir b'vageres, they machshir b'vageres that you could marry b'vageres. But you says mukatz eitz. If a stick hit her by saying makoim, we're chayish that the basulim were broken, and therefore you can't marry her. Turn Rabbanan. Almana lo yikach bein almana min ha'eresin bein almana min ha'nesuin. Pshita l'chayrin almana is almana. What's the difference? Is what from eresin? What's the difference in nesuin? Once she was married, she does say it's an almana. Says the Gemara, no. Ma'ad v'teima leilif almana mitama. Now it says by Thomas she was an almana. It says by Thomas she was an almana, and here it says valmana. So I've learned a gzeir shava. Just like Tamar was an almana from Nisuin, I would say the almana by kohen gadol is also from Nisuin, and therefore what mina erisin not just from Nisuin. So therefore the Mishnah is telling me no. I feel what mina erisin we consider almana. Mala halam Nisuin avkam Nisuin kamash malon the Mishnah that even an almana from erisin hasten almana le'inyan what kohen gadol marrying her. Fred Gemara ve'ema hachanami. It's a very good gzeir shava, guys, right? Ve'ema hachanami says we're doing the gerusha. It says that the pasuk says who isha v'sla yikach almana gerusha v'chalala. It says almana, says gerusha. Right next to almana it says gerusha. So almana is similar to gerusha. Ma gerusha bein mina nesuin bein mina erisin. How do you know? Because there's no gzeir shava to tell me not. Guys, the only reason you think not is because there's gzeir shava to Tamar by almana. By gerushin, she's a divorcee. So it won't be a difference whether she's divorced from erisin or divorced from kedushin, or from nesuin. So just like almana, there's no difference. Gerushin, there's no difference. So to almana, there's no difference. Af almana bein mina erisin bein mina nesuin. That's the limud. Okay, so that's the first din of the Mishnah. Second din of the Mishnah, he says about geres, he should not go ahead and marry by geres. Again, a girl is 12 years and 6 months. He can't marry her. What's the reason? Tana Rabbanon, hu isha bipsuleh yikach. The kohen has to marry a girl bipsuleha with bisulim. Now, pratla bageres shekalu bisuleha. This would exclude a bageres shekalu lo bisuleha, that a bisulim are kalu. They're finished. Look at Taisvis, guys. Little Taisvis. Pratla bageres shekalu bisuleha. The second word line. Lav dafka kalu. Elakoimar nismatu ktsas. In other words, she doesn't automatically lose her basulim when she turns that age. But by that age, it's beginning to go ahead and be mismayit. It seems to be withering a little bit differently. And the kohen gadol has to marry a full-fledged basula. So again, our interpretation of basula is a girl who never lived with a man. That's the English interpretation. That's not the interpretation of the halachic interpretation. The halachic interpretation of basula is a girl that's, according to the Tanakama, is a girl that's less than 12 years and 6 months. Anything up to that, then not. Okay? Now, Rabbi Elazar of Shimon machshir b'bageres. So now, b'may kamifli, what's the svara samachloikis? Now, it's not a svara mitzios, whether she's called a basula, not called a basula. It is. So it depends upon how you darshan the pasuk. Now, the word bisuleha, bibisuleha, guys. When a darshan, it's a little tricky. Here's the lashon of the pasuk. For isha bibisuleha, and a woman bibisuleha. So we're going to darshan 3 components. 1, the shirish basula. 2, the word bisuleha, and 3, the extra base at the beginning of the pasuk, bibisuleha. So, guys, we're breaking up the 3 components: the shirish of the word, the written word, and the prefix of the word. And let's see how they dash in the pasuk. So Reb Meir is of the opinion besula afilu mitzas besulim. When it says besula, it means even as long as it's intact, even if it's not complete, guys, as long as it's intact, even if it's not complete, that's fine. So right now, if you stop the pasuk right now, Reb Meir would hold what? Of course you can marry a baigeres. Guys, right? Right now, guys, if you stop the pasuk right now, I feel mitzas besulim, right? And we did the Taisvis. It's intact. It's not pshat, there's nothing there. So if you'd stop right now, you'd say what? Even a baigeres. However, continue on. Bisuleha adika kola bisulim. Oh, the word bisuleha teaches me what? You need all the besulim. Now that excludes a baigeres. Bibisuleha, what does the bibisuleha come to do? The kedarka in shaloi kedarka loy. Only if she had bia, if the besulim kedarka, if she had bia shaloi kedarka, she would be permitted to a kohen gadol. She still would be considered a besula. Even if she had bia shaloi kedarka, she still be considered a besula according to Reb Meir. Rebbe Lazar of Shimon Savri, besula means besula shlema, means complete. Mashma. Bisuleha then, therefore, guys, is going to detract. If you're starting off with a full base, then the next bisuleha means to take away. Like Rabbi, you started off at second base, so therefore bisulim to third base. Here you're starting off at third base, so you can go back to second base. Bisuleha, vafilu mixes bisulim. Guys, what does that mean? Vafilu mixes bisulim, even a baigeres. That's your limud. Guys, mixes bisulim. Afilu a baigeres would be in the parsha, and that's the machlokes between Reb Meir and Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon. Like Reb Meir, the word besula means what? You need all the besulim intact. Like Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon, besula teaches me even if the total besulim are not intact, right? Then she would be acceptable as a besula. Besula, what does the base come to teach me? Ashiu kol besula kaima. Then pikedarka ben shaloi kedarka. So there's two machlokes. Guys, two machlokes. Like Reb Meir, you a begeris out, shaloi kedarka in. Like Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Baigeris in, Shaloi Kedarka out. We only care about the first one. The first one, Rabbi Meir says Baigeris out because he dashins Bisuleha Kol Bisulim, and like Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, Bisuleha means what? Afilu Mitzas Bisulim, so Baigeris is in. And not yet. It says the Gemara Vayta. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav, Nivela Shaloi Kedarka. Psul kahuna. If there's a bia shalai kedarka, that would pass from the kahuna. This would be according to who? Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon. Not like Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says no. Rabbi Meir says yes, that she's still in the ballpark of basulim. This would be in conjunction with the second shita, that bia shalai kedarka, she would not be a basula. Nivala shalai kedarka, psul kahuna. Rashi says which kahuna? L'koyin gadol. Shemitzava ala basulim. In other words, a koyin hedjid would be able to marry her. A kohen hedjid would be able to marry her. A kohen gadol would not be able to marry her, according to this opinion, because she would not be a basula. Now, what about how can a kohen hedjid marry her? What about a zayna, guys? Why is she not a zayna? So look at Rashi. The kohen gadol shemitzav al basula aval lehedjit afilu kidarka kshera. The hedjit afilu kidarka would be kshera. Afilu kidarka would be kasha. The ein zayna el niveles le'es la'asala. Guys, a zayna would be only someone that's asa to you. If you don't have kedushin, because if you don't have kedushin, it's not asa. In other words, a woman who let's say you have a balish tshuva. Again, this is an interesting shaila. If she lived with a guy, her would passel from marrying a kohen, because then she's a halala. If she lived with a yid, then she would be mutter to a kohen. Right? Why does a zayna? If nesin, mamza, chayve krisis, chayve mises bezdin, that's a psul. Right, that's a zayna. Chalala would be gurush v'chalus l'kain hedyet, kain gadol, aman l'kain gadol. That's chalala. Okay, so this is a bia shalai kedarka psul kain gadol. Masav Rabbi asked the following question. Now we know in the parsha, guys, there's a parsha in the Torah of a woman who was forced by another man. Here's what it says: V'nasan isha shoichet imo l'avi anayra, and the man who lied with her gives to the father of the naira chamishim kesef. He was minus the woman. He has to give a 50 kesef to the father. V'loisi el isha, and he has to marry her. Tachas asher ina loyuchle shachal kayama. He's not able to send her away. So it says v'loisi el isha. By the pasuk by Nusa, when you force yourself on a woman, you have to marry her. The Torah wants to make sure that this woman doesn't have to worry about her reputation in the future. The girls heard this. They wonder why we were marrying in the first place. I said, take care of the shidduch crisis, saying that this is okay. So now, yes, absolutely. An isha that's roy for him. If a kohen gadol is ma'anis and almana, if a kohen hedjed is ma'anis and gerusha, then they won't be able to be married. Now, hechidami, how exactly did this take place? You're telling me you needed a pasuk, guys. You need a pasuk to tell me the following. Veloisi al isha, this would exclude a kohen that's Anis Garusha and a kohen gadol that's Manas Almana. That then you can't be an Isha. Now, Hechi Dami. Ilem Michidarka, Mayeri Mishum Almana, typically Mishum Havile Bula. If by the kohen gadol, right? You're telling me why if it was a regular bia, why are you telling me that the pasuk you were honest that exclude that the kohen gadol was with this woman, he can't marry her. What? Why can't he marry her? Right? I'm saying over here, V'loisi Elisha. Why would I need a pasuk to go ahead and tell me that she's not a basula? I have another pasuk. So he has to marry a basula. He can't marry her. The pasuk says if a kohen gadol is ma'anis and almana, pasuk needs to tell me he can't marry her. Good. Now why do you need a pasuk for? If it was kedarka, you don't need the pasuk. She's not a basula.
Yeah, but this is from him.
Machne Shtais. As we're going to see, Machne Shtais, but it doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference. So Ilim Bichadarka, Mayeri Mishum Almana, typically Mishum Davi Labula. Ella must be lav, Shalai Kidarka. Or Mishum Almana in Mishum Ba'ula Loi. So why do you see that the reason over here it's Asa is because she's Almana, but not because she's a Ba'ula. So you see a Bila Shalai Kidarka does not make you a Ba'ula. So why would Rav say that what? It's Asa to marry? We see from the Pasha of rape that it's Mutter to marry. Again, one more time. When this kohen was ma'anis and almana shaloi kedarka, why can't he marry her? There's two possible reasons: either because the Torah tells me so, or because she's not a basula. Good. The Torah is telling me no. You needed the Torah to tell me no. Obviously, it must be that she's not a ba'ula, because if she was a ba'ula, she won't be a basula. If she's not a basula, you have another pasuk to tell me that. So the fact that you needed a pasuk, to tell me this, it must be that it is a good bia. Kashan Rav, who said earlier that a bia shlei kedarka would passel for a kohen gadol. Here we see clearly it would not passel for a kohen gadol. Chaim, you're bothered by something?
Not really.
Okay, good. Says Amid Beis. Well, I got an easy way out of this. Hamani is Reb Meir. Who is that? That's Reb Meir. What does Reb Meir say? The Amar Besulaha Achiyu Kol Besulaha Kaima Prala Bageres V'Yasle Besulam Lemute Beula Shleikedarka Desharia. This brisa that you brought, guys, right? This that you said that you need. Reb Meir is of the opinion that Bia Shleikedarka is okay. Bia Shleikedarka is okay. So therefore, you would say this brisa by rape. You would say you would be able to marry, because Bia Shleikedarka doesn't take away the Basulim. So therefore, you needed Veloisi Isha to tell me not. But Einochinami, Rav is saying is then according to Rabbi Lazar. And what did Rabbi Lazar of Shimon hold? Bibisuleha. Guys, remember there's two machlokes. Number 3, Basula, Bibsuleha, and Bibisuleha. The number 2 was to argue, but Rabbi Meir says Bageris out. Rabbi Lazar of Shimon said Bageris in. The second one, Rabbi Meir says Shaloi Kedarka in, and Rabbi Lazar of Shimon says Kedarka out. Rav said is then according to Lazar of Shimon. The brisa that you bought from rape is going according to what? Rabbi Meir. Rav Damak Rabbi Lazar. Fred the Gemara Ikra Rabbi Lazar. 1 second. My area Mishum Beula. The Havile Zaina. The Rabbi Lazar. Panei Habayal Panuya. Shaloi L'Shem Ishus. Asa Zaina. So, in other words, you're telling me that she's a ba'ula. So why would you need to say that it's speaking by a case of an almana? You have over here she what? In other words, yeah, you have over here. You said that Rob said that what in the case where Amarav Nivla Shlekedaka Psula Kahuna. Guys, why? Because she's a ba'ula. Good? She's a ba'ula. Says the Gemara, if it's according to, you're telling me it's according to Rabbi Lazar, you could tell me a bigger chiddush. Even if she is a penuya, even if she's a penuya, like, I don't know if I'm telling you right shot. Yeah. Okay. I'm telling you right shot. One more time, guys. One more time. Why is Rab say that the Bia Shalai Kedarka that she's Pasla Kain Gadol? What's the answer? She's a Beula. She's not a Basula. You're going according to Shitas Rebbe Laza. What does Rebbe Laza hold? A Bia Shalai Kedarka takes away the fact that she's a Basula. Guys, if you're telling me it's Rebbe Laza, she's not only not a Basula, she's a Zaina. So why do I need to say it's speaking like a Shalai Kedarka? She's a Zaina. Says the Gemara. Fred the Gemara Kasha. If you tell me Rav holds like Rebbe Laza, my iri mishum beula. Why do you care that you can't marry because it's beula? Typically, that is Zaina. The Amar Rebbe Laza, panuya bal panuya, shaloi l'shem ishus, an unmarried man who lives with an unmarried girl, shaloi l'shem ishus, asa Zaina. Again, we don't pass him like Rebbe Laza, but again, it would be, let's say, about Shuva, L'chaira, would never be able to marry a Kain. He'd have to be chayish that she's a Zaina. We pass him that only she was with a non-Jew, a Giyoris. Kain can marry. You can't marry Chaim, right? You can't marry a woman who was Giyoris. Not. What about a woman, a non-Jew, a woman, a Jewish woman, and she was with a guy? You also wouldn't be able to marry her. She'd be a Zaina. Okay. Anyway, Amar Rav Yosef. So we need a teretz to the kasha, guys, right? Why did you say it says? If you tell me it's Rebbe Laza, I got a bigger chiddush over here. Why do you have to say, guys, the chiddush was shaloi kedarka and it's a beula like Rebbe Laza? I feel kedarka and with a normal person should be asa al zaina. So why do you have to say it's speaking like that? And for the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef mentioned nivel ola behema. You hear this, guys? It was a bia shaloi kedarka with an animal. The hasa mishum beula ikka, she's a beula mishum zaina leka, but she's not a zaina. This is it's unbelievable concept, guys. Listen to this concept. If a woman is with an animal or a man's with an animal, you chayv skila. You chayv skila. It's the most severe avera. Skila. Yeah, this week's parsha. This week's parsha. It's skila. The question is, vis-a-vis certain halachas, does it make you a zaina or not? For example, would she be able to marry a kohen gadol? We're saying kedarka not shaloi kedarka because she won't be a basula, but shaloi kedarka, then yes. Why? Because there's no znus. So therefore, Rav had to tell me no. She's not. It's not. There's no zoina. She's a beula because Rebbe Laza holds that what a bia shaloi kedarka with an animal. Okay. So in other words, there's a chilik between being called being a zaina and a beula. And Bula. So Bula she is. And that's why, since it's Rebbe Laza and Bia Shlei Kedarka, it takes away her Basulim. Since it takes away her Basulim, she can't marry Kohen Gadol. But Al Zaina, she's not a Zaina. Al Zaina, she's not a Zaina because that would not make her a Zaina. It's not a person. She's not, animal's not a person. It can't be Meschal you. You would be able to eat Truma. You know, if you all the halachas of Zaina wouldn't apply. An animal, there's a Gemara in Sait, there's Mishnah in Sait. Let's say a guy goes ahead and warns his wife not to be behind closed doors with Fido. The Gemara, yeah. The Gemara is the Shaila. Gemara is the Shaila. The answer is no. I'm saying, yeah. We have a Gemara that an Almana shouldn't have a dog, right? You know that. It's such a Gemara that Almana shouldn't have a dog. Okay, anyway, so says the Gemara. So it's speaking Shloi Kedarka with an animal. So since it's Shloi Kedarka with an animal, she's not a Zaina. But the Gemara doesn't make this. I'm not buying this. Ibula havi Zaina nami havi Zaina havi bula nami. Either one. The Chitayim immediately havi amukas eitz Shloi Kedarka. Let's say mukas eitz Shloi Kedarka, and you tell me. So there'd be no in Cain ein lecha isha shekasher lekahuna. They used to wipe themselves with pebbles, guys. So l'chayr, when you wipe yourself with pebbles, it's going to open up the Shloi Kedarka place. So you're going to tell me that mukas eitz Shloi Kedarka, Shloi lasses mukas eitz ayidei tzrar. So therefore, it's not possible that it's not possible. So Ella, I don't have a teretz deal. So what's the pshat and Rav, guys? So you tell me he's going to Rebbe Laza. He's going to Rebbe Laza. L'chayr, she's not only bula, she's a zaina, and you can't tell me it's speaking about a behema because if it's speaking about a behema, she'd be both. Elam Rav Zera, You know what we're speaking about? We're speaking about a katana. We're speaking about a katana, full-fledged katana. And she went ahead and she l'chaira lived. And she lived with what? With her husband. Now, so look at Rashi. Elam Rab Zera, Mishkachas lo derav, that nivola shloi kedarka would be what? Would be pasuk to kohen gadol. What's it speaking about? V'loy zayna, v'loy almana, v'loy gerusha. B'katana yisayma, hanisis labal, u'bala shloi kedarka. So now, he was boila shloi kedarka, u'miyanaba, the income psuls nus, v'almanus, u'gererishin. There was never a marriage. Rashmin and Rav, the yesh kam psul ba'ula l'koyin gadol. So guys, watch. She was a katana, and the husband lived with her shaloi kedarka. Good. The husband lived with her shaloi kedarka. When she refuses the marriage, she's not an almana if he dies. She's not a gerusha if he dies, so she can marry a kohen gadol. The only shaila would be: is she a bula or not? So what's the answer? The answer, she's a bula. Why? Because Rav is going to Shitas Rebbe Laza, and there's a bia shaloi kedarka passes to a kohen gadol. So the man can't take care of that, regardless of any woman who would be boil shaloi kedarka. So that's Pshat and Rav. Go back, Aleph. Amar Rav. What did Rav say? About 7 lines up. Amar Rav nivola shaloi kedarka psul l'kahuna. Says Reb Zera, a katana that was married by her mother, was married by her or by her brother. Or she's married once and her husband died. Now the father lost the right to marry her again, and she married her for herself. Now, if she refuses the marriage, she's not a gerusha. She was never married. She's not a almana. She was never married. So regarding those two halachas, she can marry kohen gadol. However, since there was a bia shloi kedarka, and we're going to Shitas Rebbe Laza, Rav holds that she be also kohen gadol. Good. That's the maskana. Amrav Simi Barchia, Nivolala Behema, Kidarka. If you have Bia Kidarka or Behema, Ksher Kahuna. Tanya Nami Hachi, Nivolala Misha Enai Ish, Alpha Pisha Beskila, Ksher Kahuna. If you Nivolish Misha Enai Ish, even though you Beskila, you be Kasher the Kahuna. Kiasar of Dimi Amma Maisa Beriva Achas, there was a girl, Behislay in the town of Hislay. Shaisa Mechabedes as Abaya, she was cleaning the house. The Rava Kel of Kaifri, there was a Kel of a Kaifri, a large dog. And it was a bia shloi kedarka. It entered her. It wasn't a shloi kedarka. V'chshira, and what it permitted what to the kohen. It permitted to the kohen. No, I don't know what's kohen gadol. Amar Shmuel, kohen gadol be made Rebbe. And even to a kohen gadol, Fred Gemara, be Rebbe kohen gadol. We have a Rebbe lived way after the Churban bias. El Ruya kohen gadol should be right for a kohen gadol because the animal would not be. So he's disagreeing, guys. He's disagreeing. Nivela behema b'ksher l'kuna. If you nibble the behema, he's disagreeing with the pshat of a baya. He's saying that there's no snus by an animal. Amei Rava mipasrika l'Rabashi minoha milsnam rabbanan ein snus behema. How do we know that? The chsiv, guys, it says, "Leisavi esnan zoinen mechir kelev." Guys, if an esnan, let's say you for a services of an esnan of a woman, you had relations with a woman and you paid in a sheep. That sheep is called an esnan, and you can't bring that as a carbon. Mechir kelev. Let's say that sheep you switch the dog. You take this dog, I'll take the sheep. You can't bring that as a carbon. The tanan esnan kelev mechir zoinen, the opposite. Let's say you gave a person money to an animal to be with the dog, or mechir zaina, or you switched the zaina for a sheep. Mutarim, that would be mutar. Shneimar gam shnehem. It says shneim shnayim v'lei arba. Only 2 and not 4. So you see that there's no snus by an animal. Tarabana anusas atzmai and futas atzmai. This was I told the dak anusas atzmai, the kohen gadol is ma'anis himself. Futas atzmai, he entices himself. But Yisah should not marry her. The nasi, and if he marries the nasi, it's a good marriage. Anusas chaverim futas chaverim havla Yisah v'nisa v'lesmi Yaakov Aimer havlad v'chalol v'zichalol v'chamayim havlad kasha. The vlad would be kasha. So just look at. We have one more thing to go through. This whole unit of Geras. There's a chinuch over here that is so beautiful. It's so amazing. Guys, you could see this? Barely, right? You can see it now? Kenny, give me a thumbs up if you can see it.
Yes, it's good.
Okay, now, this is the Sefer Chinuch, guys. I'm going to start from Mishar Siyah Mitzvah. What's the reason he can't marry a Begeres? What's the reason he has to marry Basula? Mishar Siyah Mitzvah, Lefisha Ika HaToiv Sheba Adam Hu, She'ilu Machshava Tahayru Nikiyas. The person should, his mind should be pure and clean. Ki Achrei HaMachshava is Yimshach Ma'isa Gufais. Because what you think about, that's where your body goes after. Al Kain, therefore, Roy Eloi L'Misharis HaGadol, Lidabek Be'isha Shalei Kava Machshava Bish Acher. It's Roy for the Kohen Gadol, the Misharis Gadol, guys, the Misharis Gadol, the big, right? Misharis Gadol. He's the head servant, that he should be with an Isha that was not Kaveya Machshava about another man. Zula Si Boy, except him. Shu Kodesh Kadashim. And therefore the children that she will give to him, Mimena, Tar will be very Tar Vinaki. Roy Lava Bikdusha, they'll also be right to be a Kohen Gadol. V'shema Taimar Umi Yodea Im Gam HaBesula Kava Machshava Bish Zula Si Boy V'Nosna Inel Ba'achem. 1 second, guys. How do you know? Just because you're marrying a Besula, how do you know that her mind is not on somebody else? Guys, what's the raya? Right? She could be a Besula and she could be thinking about other men. Hatshuva Bezeh says the Baal Sefer Chinuch. Shekol Zman Shla Yotza Machshavta and a Koyachal Apoyel. If she doesn't act upon it, ain't a nifsela. She doesn't become puzzle. I will call Zman Shenivala nifsela. Anytime there's a bia, she's puzzle because she acted upon it. V'afa pisha amu zechrenim levracha the tiboger asura love. So when she becomes a bagris, she becomes a Gemara guy. She becomes a Begzeretz Zasa. She didn't act upon it. The Sefer Chin is saying upon herself. If the machshava wasn't acted upon, she's a Begeres. Why is she puzzle? Why is she puzzle, right? It's a Gavaldik Kasha. Because it's hard to understand a difference between a 12 and 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. What's going on here? Ha'inyan hu, the Mekiven Shehi Gedoyla Kolkach, since he's older, Yetza Machshava Libo Rakra. She's thinking bad thoughts. For Ulai Kava Machshava Badamacher. Perhaps she thought about another man. Umachshava Hara. Mechivin shehi gedoyla, because now she's gedoyla as a bageres. Nechsheves la kamaisa. This machshav is going to be considered like an action. V'chein mizeh hatam amru gam she'im nis almana oynis garsha. Let me get this. Where is it? Afilu ba'oida katana asura. If nis almana meneirisin afilu when she's still katana be asahu l'kayin. The mekivin shenasla b'maisa kedushin. Since the act of kedushin took place, kvar kava machshava beish acher mitoich ma'isa ba'erisin v'nifsla. Guys, if a katana accepted erisin from another man, and then she was what, and then died, or she did mian, why would it be asur? Why would it be asur? Because not do mian. Since she accepted kedushin from another man, already machshava is not pure. So it says the Sefer Chinuch, an unbelievable thing. The Maisa Paisala feel Katanas Machshava. So the Sefer Chinuch is saying something that is just unbelievable, guys. He wants to tie into the following. He wants to say that the reason why she can't marry Katana, she has to marry Basula, is because if she's not a Basula, her mind is in somebody else. She has to be from the most pure person in Klal Yisrael, the Kohen Gadol. We want the most pure woman married to her, and as well as have the most pure children. And if she's going to go ahead and have a mind on other men, that's going to pass her. So if she was not a basula, she was with another man. She brought a koyach l'payil. She was with another man. You can't marry her because the machshav is on men. So now she's a baygeres. So what happens? She's still a basula, even though it says kolu. But for all intents and purposes, like we had trouble understanding the physical difference between a 12 and 5 months and 12 and 6 months, is you could see as she's getting older, it makes sense that her minds are on boys. That's what happened. Girls, the minds, they begin to think about boys. And so her mind's going to be thinking about what? Thinking about other men. And therefore, the Kohen Gadol has to marry at the optimum time before her machshavas can be on another person. That's the Sefer Chinuch. So you have two drachim over here. Why dafka besula? Why almana not? because he can't marry Almana because he's going to go ahead and ride in. In other words, according to the Taisus we saw, it's not so much he has to marry a basula, it's that we don't want him marrying Almana to kill the husband. So by asking the Almana, what are we doing? It's to take someone, and this is a basula. This is why dafka basula for the machshav of Taira.
If Mashiach came tomorrow